This is called the redeeming light. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. The book of Isaiah in the Bible, chapter 9, tells us, "The people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them hath the light shined." What is this light of which so many scriptures speak? In Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, we read of an early experience that Master had with that light. "I was blessed about the age of 8 with a wonderful healing through the photograph of Lahiri Mahashaya. This experience gave intensification to my divine love. While at our family estate in Ichapur, Bengal, I was stricken with Asiatic cholera. My life was despaired of. The doctors could do nothing. At my bedside, Mother frantically motioned me to look at Lahiri Mahashaya's picture on the wall above my head. Bow to him mentally. She knew I was too feeble even to lift my hands in salutation. If you really show your devotion and inwardly kneel before him, your life will be spared. I gazed at his photograph and saw there a blinding light enveloping my body and the entire room. My nausea and other uncontrollable symptoms disappeared. I was well. At once I felt strong enough to bend over and touch Mother's feet in appreciation of her immeasurable faith in her Guru. Mother pressed her head repeatedly against the little picture. O omnipresent Master, I thank thee that thy light hath healed my son." I realized that she too had witnessed the luminous blaze through which I had instantly recovered from a usually fatal disease. "Where my light is," God once told a saint whom the divine light had healed, "no darkness can dwell." The divine light, pure, calm, liberating, is the only final cure for every kind of delusion, ill health, emotional grief, and spiritual ignorance. Seek it daily in the silence, in deep meditation. As the Bhagavad Gita says in the 5th chapter, "For whom that darkness of the soul is chased by light, splendid and clear shines manifest the truth, as if a sun of wisdom sprang to shed its beams of light." Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Nice to see you all. Some of you are new faces. Glad that you could come. The subject we chose today of divine light and its transforming power seems like a very appropriate one for any day of the week, but certainly on the day that is dedicated to the sun, it seems like exactly the right topic. So many of the realities of this world that we just take for granted and see them just as they are, like the sunshine. We just think, well, this is planet Earth and the sun shines and it makes us warm, and we just take it like that. It makes the grass grow, it makes the animals frolic, it makes the people happy. And most people in the world just live their lives day after day without stopping to ask whether there is anything more meaningful behind this. We have certain aspirations that we are automatically moved toward. We want connection with other human beings. We have a deep desire to be able to give love in a meaningful way. We have an equally strong desire to be recognized and loved in return. Everything that happens in our life is a reflection somehow of this reality from the beginning of our lives as very young children. It's always a reaching out in some way to find a connection, whether it's just sitting in the backyard and enjoying the grass and the sun and the trees, or wanting our mother, our father, our brother, our sister to be with us, to relate to us in a way that is pleasing to our hearts. This is very, very deep. As we grow older, we begin to articulate that in much more complicated ways. We go into adolescence and we feel ourselves different from our parents, and we become anxious about who am I really going to be, who am I supposed to be. I remember having a great deal of dilemma as a young teenager, just trying to figure out how I was supposed to present myself to the world. I never had any instinctive sense of what I was supposed to do in a female body at all. And the whole fashion world was just a complete mystery bordering on worse as far as I was concerned. And I just remember wandering around in this confusion, and this older, rather bohemian woman who had a marvelously eccentric personal style. I remember she just sort of patted me on the head and said, "Don't worry, honey, you'll figure it out." Like that, you'll find your own way. And it was symbolic, but deeply so, of just the whole question of who am I going to be in this world? And behind that is, what is the point? Do I just look around and try to find what everybody else is doing and fit into it? That was the path that was taken by so many of the people in my life, not my parents particularly, or my siblings, but all of my peers. Their way of living seemed to me the only way I can learn, and I learned this later, it would seem like an unexamined life to me. I'm supposed to do this, so this is what I'll do. I'll cheer for the football team. I'll try to date the football captain. I'll see if I can, get elected to this position. And all of it seemed to run just for what? Very brief period of my life, the football captain actually dated me. He was so boring. And most of the experience of dating him seemed to be his belief that it would be enough for me just to be seen walking around with him. But he was so boring that I very, very quickly decided this was not it. I'd forgotten until this minute that even happened. It was such a brief ripple in the course of my life. But somewhere in all of that, either through trauma or a magnificent moment when the curtain parts, sometimes it happens to people because something so difficult happens that suddenly we have to pray and look so much more deeply. The unexamined life is not an option because the pressure against it is so great that we have to find solid ground that is actually our own 2 feet. We tend to think of that as some kind of a bad karma, that we're pushed that hard. But actually when you stand back and ask yourself, which is better, to go on thoughtlessly for a whole incarnation, or to be pushed with so much stress that you have to stop and ask yourself, who am I? Where does my strength come from? How do I really want to live in this world? All of us have certain memories in our lives. It's interesting to me, the points that stick. For some of you have been part of other classes I've given in, and I've talked about what is it that really causes us to accrue karma. And you can think of karma in this sense as unpaid debts. There's some imbalance in the account book. And it's not necessarily that we've been evil, it's just there's an imbalance in the account book. And that imbalance in the account book is what causes us to have to take another body and to reincarnate again and again, because somehow in the cosmic scheme of things, we have done something that has tilted it. And we can tilt it either because we have become so fiercely attached and desirous of some experience that we can't live balanced in our inner center, or we have so violated our own highest principles that once again we're not at peace in our center. What we're looking for in all of life is not to be withdrawn in the sense that we're not connected. This is a great misunderstanding people have. They think to be detached means to be indifferent. They think to be unattached means that I just don't care. And so people are happy, people are sad, I've hurt their feelings, I haven't. We're just sort of sinking here in this apathetic state. To be truly free in this world is to have an understanding that there is a power that is much greater than that which we're living, that we are an expression of this higher reality. And our detachment from the experiences of this world is not because we're too weak to care. It's because we see it as happening from a higher plane and acting out a story that has to be acted out. And what you have to also understand is to be detached is not to be uncommitted. That's a huge difference. Swami Kriyananda, my spiritual teacher, with whom I lived very closely for 40 years, he passed away a little less than 2 years ago. He was the most committed person I have ever met in the sense of his determination to do good work, his artistic efforts and the perfectionism that he put into everything he tried to do, just the sheer energy with which anything happened around him. There was no sleepiness, it was always full force, and especially in his commitment to help other people. Living from a state of expanded awareness, it was like you could see much more easily where things were trying to go, and the commitment was always to help them move in that direction. And that movement, even though extremely individualistic and completely eccentric for each one of us, all of us has this unique and unusual sort of pattern of behavior. I happen to mention fashion. Rachel, our friend Rachel here, is one of these people who understands fashion from the bone marrow out. And her capacity to sort of move through the artistic world of being a female person is just absolutely fascinating to me. And I've known other people just like her, and they're a species apart from me. But I still, there's just so much pleasure in just watching someone who so effortlessly and naturally, I have had several women friends in my life who simply dressed me, and that's how it worked. I traveled with my friend Preeta. She was also like Rachel, just always had this artistic sense, and I had her take me shopping, and I would pull things off the rack. I would say, is this, is this ugly or is this attractive? And she would explain to me what made it either ugly or attractive. Just her eyes, her sense of harmony in that kind of world, it was so fascinating to me. She could just see it. And I would look at it and I would say, oh yeah, it is ugly, isn't it? And then I put it away again. Each of us is very eccentric. I mean, that's the tiniest thing. You all represent different professions and life pursuits and all these different things. But all of us, on the other hand, have this, as I said at the beginning, this intense longing to be able to give love, to be able to be sincerely loved in return, and to feel that somehow we are moving from a place that is authentically our own. We talk, Swami Kriyananda used the word original. Original, to do original work doesn't mean to do something that's never been done before. Right now, art in the world as a whole is just hideous because people are so determined not to be beautiful. And they're not doing original work, they're doing horrible work because it's all reactive. We used to make things beautiful and uplifting, now we make them really gross and terrible, and somehow this is progress. I live in Palo Alto, California, and right at the corner of the Stanford campus, right on the corner of the property, which happens to be right across from our temple, there is this object, which is slightly smaller than this room, and it's made out of metal, and it has kind of a ring, and then it has a rod, and then it has a rod going over this way, and it's just completely ugly and stupid is the only thing I can think of. And I'm sure some art committee carefully picked it out. Elsewhere on the road, there's these rocks. They're just sort of rocks. They're just like sitting there. And one of them has a little piece cut out of it. And one of my friends who's an artist, fortunately, I didn't put my foot in it really big. Oh yes, he said, that piece was done by a friend of mine. That piece? Those are just rocks with pieces cut out of them. But this is where we're going. And I bow to them if it's meaningful to them. That's all right. But what we really want to do is we want to feel that we're in touch with where I come from. But we even use that phrase, he gets me, he understands where I come from. We use that slang that we use now. Where am I coming from? But do I know where I'm coming from? Am I coming from fear and self-interest and an inability even to think deeply about why am I here and how can I make this life count? Am I really coming from my point of origin? And do I know what that point of origin is? You know, when we really are, it can look like anybody else's life. We can be a fashion maven, we can be a bohemian if we want to be. Swamiji often used the phrase, he said, there's no more cliche phrase in the entire world than I love you. I mean, really, how many times has that been said? And when you try to be original, I have profound and deep feelings for you, you know. They say, what are you trying to say to me? I love you. But when you really say, I love you, from the deepest part of yourself, it's like it's never been spoken before, isn't that? Because it has that authentic ring of this is who I am. And this is really the whole purpose of why we're on this earth. We're not here just to pass through and play the games that everybody else plays, and then at the end of it not have any idea where the time went. You know, when one reaches a certain age, which some of us in this room have reached, enough winters and summers have come and gone that there is a certain, what Yogananda calls an autobiography of a yogi, certain anguishing monotony to that cycle. And you really begin to think, is this all there is? And even when beautiful experiences happen, if you're not experiencing them from a grounded sense of your own inner reality, even they can just seem superficial. This is what causes people sometimes to actually lose their mental balance or lose their joy. But the answer to it all is also right within us. And we put up the pictures of all of our gurus who inspire our work here. And these are all self-realized masters, individuals who have asked the very questions that we are asking over many, many, many incarnations, just as we have been traveling for many, many incarnations, and they have offered us answers. This is what Atma Jyoti is reading from the prayers, Dambar is reading from the book. There is this power of light. And when this light shines upon us, all darkness disappears. This is the extraordinary power of light. No matter how dark, I have this tiny little flashlight that I carry when I travel. It's like a credit card, and wandering around in the house that we're staying in now, I'm not sure where all the light switches are, and sometimes I'm insomnia, like the other people in the house are too, and we're wandering around in the middle of the night. But it doesn't matter how dark it is. I just push that little button and this beautiful beam of light comes out. And wherever that light is, the darkness disappears, doesn't it? And it's not like you fall into it. It's not like furniture in the room that you push to the side but you can still stumble on. It's like one negates the other. And so in our own quest for fulfillment, we can just continue to be filling in, trying to fill the inner hole with that which will never disperse the darkness, or we can seek deeply within ourselves. And we can seek in a human way if we wish, for meaningful work, for creative possibilities, for authentic self-expression. But the deeper we go into our inner world, the more we realize that there is some other subtle force there. And that subtle force is what we're trying to touch. And this is where the role of the masters comes into it, because they hold this vibration for us. They are clear channels, just like the windows here. We don't have any sunshine today. But if we had sunshine today, that sun would shine through these windows, and we would receive that sunlight in a particular way. Colored by the red, let through by the clear, animated by that beautiful grass green. It would be the same sunlight, but we would see it in this new and particular way. And so through the intercession, or through the example is more accurate, through the powerful example, both in scripture and in the vibration of masters who have realized this light, we can come closer. And what happens to us, all of us find it, have found it. At a certain point, our longing for that light becomes strong enough that new ideas begin to come into our world. And the single most powerful idea is that light is within you. And we begin to try to be a channel for it and to experience it. And this wonderful story that is in what Dambara wrote today about Master when he was just a little boy, he was 8 years old, and the picture of Lahiri Mahashaya was exactly that picture. I mean, not that exact print of it, but that photograph was his mother's guru. And the child is dying before her. She had 8 children. He was I think the second son. And there he was 8 years old, had cholera. They lived in a country where everybody knew what cholera looked like, and everybody knew that cholera was the end of a life. The doctors had despaired, and her consciousness, I mean, for those of you who are mothers, you can understand, or if you're not, you understand anyway. You know what it means to see that a child is about to lose his life. And it's not told the way he tells the story. Was she praying for him to live? Or was she praying for him to connect with the light? So she told him, give reverence to the Guru, give reverence to this expression of divinity. Even though you can't even lift your little hands to do so, at least in yourself turn in that way. Because death comes to everyone. We prefer it not to come to our own child when that child is small, or ever. But death comes to everyone. So it isn't a question only of, let's put this off for another 50 years. The question is, who am I? In a moment of extreme crisis, and certainly leaving the body is such a moment, when everything is going to go away, where do I turn? And whether that crisis is that somebody has just yelled at you, or that your livelihood is threatened, or your life is threatened, or someone else is threatened, where do I turn? What is my natural response? A friend of mine was in a car, a big crash happened, and they had a picture of Yogananda on the dashboard, and the car tilted over like this, and the whole time the car tilted, the picture just went right in front of his eyes, just like that. And all he could think of in that moment, he just was thinking of Guru, Om Guru, Om Guru, Om Guru, just like that. And then everything came out all right. I mean, as it happened, everything came out all right. But you see, even if he'd left his body, what would be his last thought? Oh, God's will. Here it comes. Everything is going to change again. And what Yogananda's mother was saying to him is, turn to the Guru in this moment. Go to the light. And he did. He went to the light in his own heart. And then it wasn't his time to pass. And that light came with such a power that even the cholera went away. Just went away. Just like that. Because the power of light is greater than any darkness. Physical illness is a kind of aberration of the pattern. And then the pattern was straightened out by the presence of light. I'm walking in the darkness and I push my little flashlight. So this is the practice that is the most important practice that we can do. It was also in our affirmation. Just pure positive thinking, which sounds like such a cliche. But which direction does our mind turn? Very early in my life, I was with a friend and we were in a car. And it was a very old car, and it was the only car we could afford. It had been a gift to us. And we were driving along, and the car absolutely stopped dead on the highway, on the road. Fortunately, it wasn't a highway. It just stopped absolutely still. Simultaneously, both of us. My friend was negatively inclined, I was positively inclined. He said, the car is ruined, what will we do? I said, oh, it's something small, it'll be easy to fix. Neither of us knew anything about cars, and we hadn't the foggiest idea what was going on with the car. But both of us just went where we were in the habit of going. Of course, as soon as his thought was, oh, the car is ruined, what are we going to do? What happens to your energy in that moment immediately? You're worried, you're sad, Now, how clearly do we think when we're worried and we're sad? How often do we attract positive ideas to us? My thought was, oh, it was nothing. And even if the car had been totally ruined, which in fact it wasn't, it was something small. But even if it had been totally ruined, where is my energy going? My energy was just going up. Well, we'll just figure this out. We'll do the next, and we'll do the next. This is the power of the light. And we may think that, in the crisis moment, that's when we'll find it. But if we're not in the habit, when the crisis moment comes, we'll go exactly where we've always gone. In spiritual life, Yogananda had an expression. He said, take care of the minutes, and incarnations will take care of themselves. I think that's one of the most important things he ever said. Because who we are minute by minute is who we become lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. In this moment, where am I looking? Am I looking upward and inward to the power of light to solve whatever problem this is? Or am I looking down into the sewer to see how much worse it can get? And you're standing in the same spot anyway, and the car is either broken or it's not. You're either going to keep the job or you're not. The child will either live or the child won't live. But where am I looking? And so all of spiritual life, so vast, so glorious, so complicated, so metaphysical, it really just comes down to the tiniest little things. I lived so long with Swami Kriyananda, and he was very realistic. Whatever was happening was exactly what was going to happen. He wasn't airy-fairy about things. But he always felt that whatever it is, we'll just figure it out. We'll just figure it out. And if in the end, what we figure out is that we are wholly defeated and we are going down in flames, we are still just wholly defeated and going down in flames. And one can do that with a cheerful attitude of acceptance, or one can do that in despair. And by no means did everything at Ananda over the 40 years we were together doing it, by no means did everything always go well. Many things went very, very badly. And we had many notable failures and financial catastrophes and near bankruptcies and persecutions and fire and betrayals. And I say it all sort of kind of like that, And much of it was not easy. Many years ago, our community burned down in June, and we had to work on it very hard. And we never had difficulty, really, but as I remember, by September, we were really tired. That was how I remember realizing, whew, this has been a long summer. And so we could just say to each other, we are really tired little puppies at this point. This has been a hard one, dragging this wagon without wheels through this whole miserable, burned out summer. But what a wonderful, miserable, burned out summer this has been. You see how different it is? That's the power of light. And if one has no other spiritual principle, just have it always be, look to the light. Where is the light in this? Even though I am too feeble even to lift my hands, let me at least mentally bow to the presence of the Guru. And then see that light enveloping us all. And in the presence of light, no darkness can live.